I refused to pay for my ex's daughter's college because I'm not her father, but a DNA test revealed a twisted family secret that changes everything. Plus 2 updates. I am a 50-year-old man, and I legally have 3 children with my ex-wife, who is 51. Their names are Adam, who is 23, Chris, who is 21, and Sophie, who is 18. Biologically, the first 2 children are mine, but the youngest, Sophie, is the result of my wife's infidelity. I discovered this truth when Sophie was 2 years old, after we had to rush her to the emergency room. I filed for divorce 2 months later, and all the kids know exactly why their mother and I split up. I got 50-50 custody of my own sons, but because Sophie was legally mine, I was forced to pay child support for her, which made me very bitter and resentful. My ex claimed that Sophie was the result of a one-night stand and that she didn't know who the father was, which is one of the reasons I was kept on the hook for child support. I tried to fight it at first, but in the end, I decided to just suck it up to save myself the stress. However, I made it very clear to my ex that outside of the mandated child support, I would take no other responsibility for the girl. I was very angry and didn't think I could handle raising a child that I was tricked into caring for, so I decided to keep my distance. I told my ex that I would shut down any attempt she made to position me as Sophie's father. But just because Sophie wasn't mine didn't mean I was horrible to her. I always made an effort to be polite, and I made sure my sons knew that what happened between their mother and me was not Sophie's fault, and that they should never be mean to her. After some time, I learned to trust again and remarried a wonderful woman. She made it very clear that she and her daughter were a package deal, and I accepted this completely. I did everything I could to be there for my stepdaughter Katie, who is now 17. Aside from the typical ups and downs, I would say I managed to build a great family life for myself. We have family nights, I attend most of her after-school events, and I take my family on fun vacations. I also put my sons through school and paid for their apartments and cars, though they were on their own for gas money. My son Chris is expected to graduate this coming summer, and I made a silly post on social media about how relieved I was going to be that I only had one more kid left to put through school. A couple of days later, I got a message from my ex. She asked me to pay for Sophie's college expenses on my own, since the pandemic had made money tight for her. I asked her what she meant, and she referred to my social media post. I had to remind her that my legal obligation to Sophie ended the day she turned 18, and that my post was about my stepdaughter, Katie. My ex was furious. She demanded to know why I was willing to pay for Katie and not Sophie, since neither of them are biologically related to me. I countered by saying that I knew up front that Katie wasn't my biological child, and I agreed to care for her, instead of being conned into doing it like I was for Sophie. After that, I got a call from Sophie. She was crying and asked what she did to make me hate her so much and to leave her feeling so excluded. I told her softly that I don't hate her and that nothing about this situation was her fault. But the simple truth is that it wasn't personal. I'm just not her father. Since then, my sons have told me that Sophie has become really depressed and my ex is blaming me. I don't see what I have to do with it. So, am I the asshole? Update. Thank you to everyone for their kind words of support. A lot of you suggested therapy, and for the longest time I never felt like I needed it. But after everything that's happened, I've decided that talking to a professional won't hurt. I thought I had buried my anger and hurt toward my ex years ago, but now new information has come to light that's just making me angry all over again. Not too long after my initial fight with my ex, she and Sophie got into a horrible fight that ended with Sophie getting kicked out of the house. Sophie called her brothers, and they in turn called me. She is now staying with my wife Katie and me. Apparently, in spite of my efforts to maintain a boundary, my ex had been telling Sophie for years that if she was well behaved and did well in school, then I would think of her as a daughter again. It was my ex's twisted way of getting Sophie to be obedient. When I made my social media post, Sophie thought that I was finally giving her the validation that my ex had always promised her. When I explained the truth, it was just chaos. Sophie called my ex horrible names and demanded to know who her biological dad was. My ex refused to tell her, and told her that if she was going to be disrespectful, she had to live somewhere else. Originally, some people had suggested that in spite of Sophie's blood type, she could still be my daughter, and that was really starting to get to me. Now that Sophie was staying with me, I took some of her DNA and sent it off for testing. I couldn't believe the results, so I sent it in again for a second time. To my absolute shock, Sophie and I are indeed related. She's just not my daughter. The bad feelings are all starting to come back to me, and this new information is just putting me in a terrible place. I don't even know how or when to break the news to Sophie, or how to even confront my ex about any of this. I feel like such a fool. Update. I did a second DNA test to be absolutely sure. It turns out Sophie's biological father is, genetically, my cousin.